Here at the Melanin Initiative, we simplify medical information into language you can understand. We create a safe space for you to ask your questions and share a nursing perspective. We're delighted to bring back our two-time special guest, Dr. Nykkia Sellers, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner and diabetes expert. This is her second time on the show. If you haven't already, go back and see her first episode where she shared her journey of becoming a diabetes nurse practitioner entrepreneur. She dropped a lot of valuable information in there, and you can find her contact information below, which she's been so gracious enough to share with us. Today, we'll be talking about A1C and how to manage diabetes. This will be our second time talking about diabetes on the platform since we started. The first time we went into pretty in-depth with Dr. Mark Smith. He's a pharmacist out of Alabama, and we're going to continue that conversation by going into a little bit more detail than we did in that first episode, which is what we do here. We'll typically talk about a topic, do like a general overview, and then we'll come back to continue the conversation in more detail because like a lot of topics, especially diabetes, there's so much to learn. And so being able to break it down into little bits and hear from other people can really help you understand it better when you get to hear it more than once. If you're new here, welcome to the Melanin Initiative. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, another doctorally prepared nurse practitioner, and one of your co-hosts here at the Melanin Initiative, along with Alicia and Geraldine, who send their love in their absence. We're a health literacy podcast. When we say health literacy, we're talking about your ability to obtain information, to understand that information, and then to use it, to manage your health and advocate for others. It's our hope that by watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or listening on any of your favorite podcast apps, that you'll be empowered to ask questions, educated on how you can manage your health, and confident to navigate the healthcare system. We have two missions here. The first one is to promote that health literacy, both for the public and our friends in healthcare. The second is to elevate the voice of nurses, which we'll be doing here today with Dr. Sellers, bring awareness to all the career options in the healthcare industry, and inform our peers on how we can leverage our expertise as both clinicians and entrepreneurs. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, share this information. Every time you engage with our content, it shows the algorithm that this information is important, so that when people like you look for topics like this, we show up higher in the search results. Remember, this show is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed here are opinions alone. They're not a representation of any of our affiliations. If you think you might be having a medical emergency, you should seek medical attention and medical guidance from your healthcare provider. If you or someone you know might be having a physical emergency, you can call 911. If you think you might be having a mental health emergency, you can call 988 or text 741-741. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got greatness in the house today. Joining us is a trailblazer in endocrinology and diabetes care, a woman who has dedicated over 20 years to transforming healthcare and breaking down barriers. She's not just a leader, she's a force with an extensive background in adult endocrinology and chronic disease management. She specializes in the art and science of diabetes care. This powerhouse is a certified diabetes care and education specialist and holds board certification in advanced diabetes management, credentials that set her apart as a true expert in the field. But she's not stopping there. She's the founder and owner of Diabetes Care and Wellness, the only specialized diabetes practice in Crittenden County, Arkansas. She built this practice with a mission to improve healthcare disparities and increase access to care for the underserved. Her work isn't just about medicine, it's about making a difference. Dr. Sellers is a national voice in diabetes education, sharing her knowledge through publications, media, and national conferences. She's a member of the American Diabetes Association and the Association of Diabetes Care and Education Specialists. She serves on the advisory board for the Women's Interprofessional Network of the ADA. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to be inspired once again by the one and only Dr. Nykkia Sellers. Welcome back, Dr. Sellers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. And so let's do our little icebreaker. We have 5 questions for you so we can learn about you in the next 5 minutes.
Okay.
What's a surprising fact about you or your journey that most people don't know?
That I really didn't know that I was a diabetes expert, that somebody else had to push me into. We learned that at our last conversation, but most people don't know that about me.
If you had an opportunity to give a TED Talk, what would your message be?
Never to listen to what other people think of you if it's negative, and always to try to incorporate something positive in somebody else's life.
So as an entrepreneur who's hiring a team, what's one thing you learn now that you wish you would have known sooner?
You want to know my honest answer?
Yes, this is all about honesty here.
never hire a family member.
Oh, I knew you were going down that road.
Always keep everything business, like never do anything personal. So keep everything business straight across the board.
What can we expect from your business in the next 12 months?
Growth, growth for the next 12 months. And I'm excited about it.
What does that growth look like?
So we are incorporating new services. We are also getting the word out more about our office. Our office has been here 2.5 years, so more providers are referring to us. We add the addition of a dietitian that's in our office twice a month. So growth looks like increasing our patient load, increasing productivity, and then also helping people to improve their A1C.
Wonderful. And what can we expect from you in the next 12 months?
Well, I guess me to continue to grow as a provider, and hopefully increase the awareness about diabetes in the community and also nationally.
And outside of being a provider, how would you describe yourself?
Um, I would describe myself as being an introvert to people who don't know me and an extrovert to people who do. Like if I don't know you, I'm probably more reserved. But if you're my friends, you're gonna be like, Nykkia, please be quiet.
Well, thank you so much for participating in our icebreaker. Let's get into our questions and learn a little bit more about the A1C. If you can, tell us what it is, the hemoglobin A1C.
So the A1C, when I break it down and talk to patients, it's a summary of your blood sugar level over 3 months. And so how that's measured, this I guess be more for the providers or so, or in people in the medical field. We look at the red blood cell content, and so it's the red blood cells. Their lifespan is about 90 days, and so they also can carry or hemoglobin, and so or it's attached to the cells, and so that's how we come up with the A1C. So it's kind of a predictor of the life of the red blood cells. It's a predictor of the A1C, and so for us with diabetes, if the A1C is 6.5 or higher, then we know that it's diabetes. So with prediabetes, the A1C is like 5.7 to 6.4. Now, there are some conditions to where we don't necessarily look totally at the A1C. We look like at time and range, but also there's other uh, levels that we may look at. Just say someone who has end-stage renal disease or someone who has high turnover of the red blood cells, like for certain anemias. We may look at like their time and range or look at different things because we know the A1C may be falsely elevated or falsely lowered in certain conditions.
And when you say time and range, what do you mean by that?
So the time and range is when we look at a person's blood sugar levels on a continuous glucose monitor or CGM. The most common CGMs are like the Libre or the Dexcom. And so we look and see on average where their numbers are. So for most people, you want the time and range to be above 70%. You want the time below range, and that meaning like if their blood sugars are less than 80 and 50, 60, 70, you want that time below range, to be less than 4%, because we not only look at patients with high blood sugars, but we also want to make sure they're not having too many low blood sugars, because that's also can be an issue. So I always tell people, especially like when I have a nurse practitioner student, ask patients about their low. Make sure they're not having any low readings. Make sure they're not having any nocturnal signs of hypoglycemia, which could be signs like they're having headaches throughout the middle of the night sweats, they're having really bad dreams. So not only looking at the higher elevated blood sugars, but looking at the low blood sugar readings and see if there's a pattern to see why they may be having it. I'm sorry you didn't ask for that, but but just looking at those patterns.
When you talk to your patients and you explain this 2 to 3 month ability to measure how they've been managing their diabetes or their A1C, what's a common misconception patients have?
Some people think that the A1C is just so that they may think their blood sugar is the A1C. Oh, they checked my A1C. My A1C was 200. My A1C was 400. And some people also think that they'll say something like, "Well, I didn't eat this morning because I knew you were going to check my A1C." Well, it doesn't work like that. Your blood sugar is right here. Now the A1C is over a 3 month period. So those are the most common, misconceptions or so that I hear.
That's been my experience as well. Is they'll say, oh, they had a cake, it was a birthday party, and then you have to go and explain the difference between the two numbers, which I think you've done a really good job of. And you also talked about how that's interpreted. So when we talk about our different populations, if you can tell the differences that you might look for or recommendations in terms of the goal when it comes to, let's talk about our older adults first.
Okay. So these are not necessarily my goals, whatever. These are so the American Diabetes Association has the standards of medical care in diabetes. And so the guidelines that I go by is often what's created by our experts in diabetes in the field. And so for most adults, the A1C goal is under 7. But for the older population, we can be a little bit less strict. And again, it still needs to be individualized to that person, to that patient. So that's why I always say for most. But for most geriatric or our more seasoned patients, a A1C, if it's less than 8 or either 7.5, again, it needs to be individualized to that patient. And the reason for that is because we don't want them having hypoglycemia. And hypoglycemia is like blood sugar less than 80 or so. And so we can keep their blood sugar like between like fasting 90 to 150 or so, or before bed 90 to 150. And so like if the patient has had issues with hypoglycemia in the past to where they may have an issue to where it's a safety issue where they may fall because of low blood sugars, or they had some type of seizure activity. And so you really want to make sure that you're not stressing, oh, this A1C needs to be 6. No, we can be a little lax with that. If they've had issues with cardiac issues or heart problems, you might want to say, okay, well, let's try to get it less than 7.5 or so. But still, you need to just really have it individualized for that patient.
Okay, so you're saying for older adults that it might be a little bit different based on other diseases that might be present and maybe side effects we want to avoid based on their own history. And so this might be a conversation that your provider has with you. And the most important thing you stress is the individualization of it. Not only the diagnosis and the goal, but what we've talked about in another episode is the medications too. Because there could be so many people in the same household who have diabetes, for instance, and we know that families share medication.
Yeah.
So we have told them many times not to do that. And so when you talk about individualized care, you mean everything, and that includes
Mhm.
medications.
Yes, for sure.
And then what about, what age ranges do you see?
So I see adults, so anyone 18 on up.
Okay, do you
Yeah.
see pregnant women?
I don't see pregnant women. When I got into diabetes, I had a great mentor, an endocrinologist, Dr. Steinberg, and he said early on, if a woman is pregnant, make sure that you send them to a high risk. I forgot what they call a maternal fetal, high risk
Mhm.
OB doctor or whatever physician. And so that's exactly what I do. So I'm like, okay, if this man has been doing this 40 years, if he's saying this, that's how I roll as well. So no, I don't see pregnant women. Now, if someone is pregnant, I will see them, but they also need to see their high risk OB because the numbers need to be really strict, and there's such a risk for the woman and the child. So you want them to be in the best care possible for their safety and their unborn child safety as well. So,
Okay.
and when I have seen people my patients who have gotten pregnant, so I just kind of go over like eating habits and things like that and letting them know, okay, your numbers need to be such and such. But if they're pregnant, I'm gonna make sure they see the high risk.
And so you brought up another vocabulary word for our audience. You mentioned the word hypoglycemia. So
Mhm.
typically in medicine, if you hear the word hypo or hyper, hypo typically means lower than what we have set, the goal that we have set for you. In this case, hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. And then if you hear the word hyper, that usually means that it's higher than we want it to be. And in both cases, we want to do something about it if it's
For
safe and
sure.
appropriate at that time for you.
For sure.
So let's give our audience some tips on how they can lower their A1C before they come back for that 3-month visit.
Okay. So it really just depends on where your A1C is and what your goal is that your provider and you have set together. So because someone with an A1C of 7.2 versus A1C of 14, then your medication is going to be a lot different. But with people with type 2 diabetes, it's always important to make sure that we're doing things that if they have obesity or if they're overweight or if they have other comorbidities, we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to decrease the risk of further complications. So we want to place patients on medications that will help to decrease, like cardiorenal adverse events or risk, decrease that risk. So often people who have type 2, not all the time, but often they may also have obesity or be overweight. So we want to make sure that you are controlling your portion sizes, decreasing your calories in your diet. You want to make sure that you're increasing your physical activity. Physical activity helps with insulin resistance. And so all those things will help to lower the A1C. So if we start and say, maybe start 10 minutes a day, some type of physical activity. I'm not saying go and run a marathon, but if you do small, realistic goals that you can incorporate in your lifestyle, then that's the way to decrease your A1C. It's recommended to do 150 minutes a week of some type of physical activity. Also, knowing foods that have that are carbs, so that are carbohydrates that break down into sugar, and you want to limit those things. Not to say you can't have that. Like I said before, I've had patients to say, oh, well, my provider told me I can't eat anything white. That's not realistic and that's not true. So I always tell patients you can eat just about anything that you want in moderation and, sensible things. We still want you to eat healthy and everything. But there's ways to still enjoy the foods that you like, incorporate the foods in your culture and things that you like, and still be able to lower your A1C.
And you mentioned another vocabulary word, endocrinologist. Can you explain who that is and what they do?
Endocrinologist is someone who studies diabetes. Yep. It's endo is like word for endocrine, and knowledge is study of endocrine. So endocrinologist, someone who studies the endocrine system.
And how do you collaborate with them?
Um, since I'm in my own office, far as diabetes patients, I really don't collaborate with a lot of endocrinologists. I know it was one particular case. I called one of my endo friends. I was trying to rule out the patient thought they had Cushing's disease. I did all the testing and everything I did for the patient, and she didn't have it, but she just wanted to have it. So I was like, okay, well, let me contact this endocrinologist out. And I was like, okay, what are your thoughts? And so, because I love diabetes. So with me, I love taking care of patients with diabetes. Like there's so much in the endocrine world. So the cushion, I was like, okay, let me just make sure that I know what I'm doing. And so I refer to endo then. Then I also have one patient now who has a thyroid mass. So I felt her thyroid was enlarged, sent her for an ultrasound. And so I have another endocrinologist that I'm sending her to for a thyroid biopsy. So that's far as with endocrinologists, how we collaborate.
Wonderful. Yeah, and they do specialize in diabetes and other hormones, like you mentioned, the thyroid. And then you mentioned some really wonderful recommendations for patients on how they can lower their A1C. What's the biggest challenge you see with patients following any of those recommendations?
Welcome to Premier Endocrine and Wellness Clinic, a new way of endocrine care. My name is Dr. Peggy Amwakuhene. I'm a board-certified internist and endocrinologist. I am the founder and CEO of Premier Endocrine and Wellness Clinic, and I serve patients in Virginia, DC, Maryland, and beyond. So which conditions do I manage? Apart from the usual diabetes, which could be type 1 or type 2 or diabetes in pregnancy, I also deal with thyroid-related disorders, whether you have an underactive thyroid, overactive thyroid, you have thyroid nodules, or even thyroid cancer. I treat those as well. The other things I deal with, PCOS, people who have bone-related issues like osteoporosis, adrenal-related issues like low cortisol or too much cortisol. These are things I specialize in. So why choose Premier Endocrine and Wellness Clinic? This is currently a virtual practice, so you can receive care from the comfort of your home. We're currently not a network with insurance, but rates are affordable and will not break the bank. There are no hidden fees and there are no membership fees. To make your appointment, follow the link below.
Well, believe it or not, the biggest challenge isn't necessarily like the patients or anything like that. The biggest challenge really is most of the time insurance. The insurance companies kind of dictate, what we can and cannot do and how we treat patients, to be honest. So that's one of the biggest challenges. Because what I've found is that when patients trust you, you take the time with patients and you talk to them and you let them know they're a part of the decision making, what we're going to do, the medications and everything, they're on board with a lot of things. Like I said, there's some patients that's, hey, I don't have this or whatever, still kind of like maybe in a little bit of denial or so, and say, oh, I'm not going to do anything. But that's far and in between. Most of the time, if you just really take your time and talk to patients and they see that you care about them and care about their well-being, they're going to be on board with managing their diabetes.
Yeah, and certainly I know our peers who are watching are talking back to us through the screen right now about that. It's challenging on both ends, right, as the patient and the provider. But it's true, when you do take the time, show them you care, let them know how much they're a part of this decision, it does have a really positive impact. So one thing I'm really into recommending at the moment when it comes to physical activity, and since so many of our audience and our patients work from home, there's a lot of sitting involved, just as clinicians, right? A lot of documentation. If you live in places like I've lived, you're sitting a lot in traffic. So it's a lot of sitting. So my newest thing right now is the walking pad with the standing desk, because, people are going to say they're busy. They have to come home, cook dinner, do homework with their kids, get on more Zoom meetings at night. And it's like, hey, I don't have time. Even building a business, it's like I either got to do this or I got to do that. And I don't want to not do either one. So now with this standing desk, I can get it all done. I get meet the physical goals. My mental health stays high, right? Because now I don't feel like I'm sacrificing my own health for this other stuff. And it didn't cost a lot. Like, certainly you can get some really expensive ones, but this is under $200. The desk isn't anything fancy either. And it's just my number one recommendation. A good friend of mine just bought a Peloton, and even those you can put a standing desk too. So that's my recommendation, because that's
a good one.
Time. The time is the biggest barrier. And I know walking isn't the same as some other vigorous activities, but it's better than nothing. And it actually has there's lots of studies that show how beneficial walking can be.
Yes, for your heart and everything. So yeah, not just only for weight loss and diabetes, but heart, because your heart is a muscle. So if you're walking, it helps with getting the muscle strengthened and everything else. So yeah,
and you better sleep too.
Yes. And that's definitely, and that'll help your A1C, sleep. People forget about how much sleep will help. If you're asleep and you're stressed, that makes cortisol levels go up, make your blood sugar go up. So if you can get a good night's rest, that helps with your blood pressure, helps with your blood glucose. So sleep is very important. I'm so glad you said that. That's very important.
Yeah, even our students who are watching, who have to, study their life away, then they too can, instead of gaining that freshman 15, or we only talk about freshmen, but I mean, you can keep gaining that weight every time you go back. Even for our students, that can be helpful because, if you're sitting at a desk studying, what are you going to do? Snack to stay awake, drink those monster drinks. But if you're moving, come on, it's harder to fall asleep when you're moving. I don't know if you didn't get on this bandwagon sooner because you always think, I have to go to the gym or I have to go do this. You think in the isolation, right?
Yeah.
But I've started this work-life integration, right? That's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some trends that you're seeing as we start to wrap up. What are some of the trends you're seeing when it comes to tech and even how we're using weight loss medications these days, diabetes for weight loss, which we'll be going to get into more. By the time your show airs, I think we would have already talked about it a little bit, but it's going to be great to hear from you as a diabetes expert on your thoughts on these trends that we're seeing and how diabetes medications are being used.
So, I mean, of course, with the medications for weight loss, I think they're great. So far as with diabetes, those medications help decrease. They have a cardiac benefit, so they help decrease the risk of like heart attacks. The ones that have a cardio benefit. So one of the reps told me, which I had kind of read about it, that one of the medications that for diabetes and helps with weight loss is going to have a kidney indication, so that's going to be great. What I'm seeing in literature and everything, even for the weight loss medications, because you now know, of course, the FDA has approved the medication that once were for diabetes, they still are, but they approved them. So let me just say tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro for diabetes, and also Zepbound for, was it Zepbound?
Yeah, I think it's Zepbound.
It's Zepbound. I always mess it up. Zepbound for obesity, and then like Ozempic for diabetes is Wegovy for obesity management, which is semaglutide. I try not to say too many brand names and all that, but it kind of gets confusing. But anywho, those medications that are for weight loss, so they also have indications that's coming forward for like liver protecting, a sleep apnea, just a whole gamut of things that's going to be really game changers. So I love that class of medication. Now back to the diabetes part. Now those medications have been game changers for my patients, because sometimes I may have a patient who has an A1C of 14, of course they're going to need some insulin therapy. So we start on insulin therapy, start them on the GLP-1, which those medications are in that class. I've had so many patients that are able to come off of insulin therapy and stay off of insulin therapy because of these medications. Now, a lot of times these medications through Hollywood and all this celebrity stuff may get a bad rep or whatever, but they have been really good medications to help with diabetes. Also, like I said, they decrease like cardiovascular risk. I mean, which is great, because people with diabetes have a 2 to 4-fold increased risk of cardiovascular event, like heart failure, heart attack, stroke. So the medications are great, and they help patients to lose weight. So I love them. And then, so of course, you said trends. I don't know if it's necessarily a trend, but the CGM, the continuous glucose monitor, they've been game changers for patients. They actually get to see like, hey, how did this slice of pizza affect my blood sugar? Maybe I need to have a smaller slice next time. Or I'm looking at my blood sugar, I'm working out, so I'm seeing my blood sugar is improving. Let me work out more. You get, and we're in this time of instant gratification. So they may see the instant gratification of I'm working out and I see my blood sugar has improved. Also, you don't have to have the daunting task of constantly sticking your finger. So those are things that have helped with diabetes management, those advancements in diabetes. Also, different insulin pumps. And people often think the insulin pumps are just for people with type 1. People with type 2 also benefit from pump therapy. So those are things. And then there's more that coming through the pipeline as far as diabetes management. So that's why it's important to attend, the conferences like ADA, where you get the newest things with technology, newest research with different experts from around the world, to where, you're getting that cutting edge information and staying abreast on clinical guidelines.
Yeah, and we're going to throw up, shout out to Angie, our producer. We're going to throw up hopefully some images of a continuous glucose monitoring device as well as an
Okay.
insulin pump so that people can,
Okay.
see what we're talking about.
Okay. Okay.
Anything with AI in diabetes management?
I have read some things, but for me, it is so scary. I mean, far as technology itself, period. I'm
Oh,
not the most advanced, not AI itself, but like I'm thinking, like, okay, well, what can I do with AI? And like I know now, like they're doing the AI like chat, far as with your documentation and things like
oh,
that, and different EMRs. But to me, like even they people here laugh at me because like I'm still slow moving, even like with the laptops and things like that, my phone. So that's why I say scary for me, because
yeah.
I'm not the best with technology. But I think that it's gonna be the way of the world for all things, not just diabetes, but incorporating AI. So
So
hopefully,
I'm in the derm space, so I really just know about AI and derm at the moment. So because you said, what can I do, right? So I always love to give ideas.
okay.
Shout out to a new friend of mine, Timothy August. He's a physician associate who's been in derm for decades, and in an entrepreneur space, he created something called Derm Biller AI. So have you used ChatGPT?
Hi, I'm Alicia from the Melanin Initiative podcast. Our mission is twofold. One, to simplify complex health information so you feel empowered to ask questions, educated on how to manage your health, and confident to navigate the healthcare system. And two, to elevate the expertise of nurses, spotlight the diverse career opportunities within the healthcare industry, and inform our peers how to leverage their expertise as clinicians and entrepreneurs. In less than 2 years, we've grown to over 50,000 views and 1,000 downloads, with an international audience spanning the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and more. Our engaged listeners are professionals, entrepreneurs aged 25 to 44 who value authentic, impactful content. Want to connect with this dynamic audience? Advertise with us. Send in your 1-minute video ad and let's amplify your brand. Email tmi.melanin@gmail.com for rates and details. Let's work together.
Kind of.
So if you go to that page, and you look at Derm Biller, it looks exactly like that, right? But ChatGPT has been fed information from all over the internet. But with Derm Biller AI, it's only been fed information related to derm and billing. So if your practice has trouble figuring out the right ICD code, how to overcome
Wow.
insurance hurdles, you would go to this diabetes AI, and it would help you get right to what you need. And at the moment that we're filming this, it's free in its current version. If you don't sign up at all, like put your email, you get 5 options, 5 questions. But if you put your email in, you can get 100. So far, he hasn't seen people need more than 100. But if it ever gets to that point, then they'll add on that service. But how cool is that?
Right.
Just someone in practice, right? It's a simple thing.
Right.
It seems like such a simple thing. I'll just Google, I'll just look it up. We do that all the time. But what if you had something that was really designed to support you in that fashion from someone who's in the specialty, like especially? So that's one thing you can do. There's a lot of things happening over there,
Okay.
but I don't want to bore our audience. But when you say, what can I do? The fact that you've been doing this for nearly 2 decades, I think if there's anyone who can do anything, it would be you.
Well, so you're saying I need to stop being so scared of technology
Yes. Yeah.
advances?
That's what I'm saying. Because even if you don't want to build it, if you have someone who's just an entrepreneur who recognizes this is an opportunity, they might just want to bring you on as an expert consultant, creative liaison. You hear what I'm saying? You hear where I'm going with it?
I do.
Do you publish?
I have, but not a whole lot. So I do a lot of, webinars and things like that. I have one published article. So.
And but you could, right? And that will further solidify you in this space. And when these entrepreneurs who want to build this tech, they see your name pop up, 50 times in an article on PubMed, and hey, they call you.
And so another thing that we're incorporating in our practice is research.
Wonderful.
So,
that was my next question.
Yeah, so we're incorporating that. That's one of the new things that we're going to do for this year. And so, there's possibilities with that too, as far as publishing and everything as well. So,
yeah. Do you see patients who don't speak English?
I want to incorporate. I really want a bilingual staff. So,
Oh, yeah.
yep, that's another goal.
Do you have any services for veterans?
And we're getting ready for that too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And students or precepting?
I have. I'm still open. We do have a like medical assistant student here. I had a student a couple months ago from UT, University of Tennessee Health Science Center, nurse practitioner student. But yeah, and
Wonderful.
she was interested in becoming an entrepreneur too. So
Oh, even better. Yeah, and one thing I like to just put a plug in, a good friend of mine, Paula Gonzalez, she was PA of the Year last year, and now she's director at large at the American Association of Physician Associates. She's really huge into increasing inclusivity in clinical trials. And so one thing she likes to promote, and I'm out here helping her, is that when you do conduct clinical trials or participate in them, just make sure the language on the consent form or anything on your website is able to be provided in another language, especially Spanish, because it's actually no longer considered a foreign language. So by default, that means it's standard practice to have it available in Spanish at the minimum.
okay. Definitely good information.
Yeah, and then I just want to let's see, and then one last thing, because you mentioned that you're on social media. Is that just to like talk about your business, or when your clients come in, you share their stories?
So we have shared our patient success stories. So one thing I did last year, we did in November, which is diabetes month, excuse me. And so in November, so last year was our first year doing that. I can't remember, it may have been like 5 or 6 patients that we highlighted, whose A1C may have been 12 and got down under 7, things like that. I know one for sure was like 14 and she was 6, because we did her again this year. This is like a follow-up. So this year in November, we did that again. I think we highlighted 2 people a week in November. And then the last person was our person from last year who had lost a bunch of weight, like over 80 pounds or so. A1C still was under 6, and just still doing well. Kidney function had improved. So my patients now, they come in and say they want to be our success story. So what I probably would try to do is do one a month, but I have to get everything in place as far as all the things that we're trying to incorporate. So I'm like, that's kind of on the back burner, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I need to make a note to do what I said I was going to do one a month.
Yeah, that would be so encouraging. And like you said, just like we have them be part of the decision, they can be part of the journey of other people, because we know, especially when it comes to chronic diseases, that support groups really make a difference, right? Even though you're knowledgeable and you build that rapport with them, they also want to just hear from the other people.
Yeah,
And I'm like, hey, did this work for you?
sure. I had created a support group when I was at a larger organization. I was director over a diabetes center, and so that's one of the things that I created. And those people in that group, they loved it. They loved coming together and discussing things. And I would bring an expert in from different fields, or whatever, to come and talk to them. Then they'd just get together after. And it's a lot of older people too. It just made my heart feel good too.
Yeah,
I've done it in my own practice, but
that success story continues, right? 6 months, 12 months. How did you keep it up? How do you continue?
yeah.
So
Or
yeah,
I'm having this issue.
yeah.
I've had this issue too. Let me talk to you. I love that then. And maybe that's something I'll do eventually once we get everything
Or your
here.
team. All these ideas don't have to be yours to implement. That's the entrepreneur like Krypton. Every new idea, you think you have to implement it, but that's not true.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Talking about tech, do you have any apps that you recommend for patients so they can kind of do their own monitoring at home or anything?
So a lot of the medications, a lot of the like CGMs, like the Libre, they have like the different apps that you can go on. They also even have like diabetes educators that you could talk to. So I know like Novo has one, Lilly has something as well, Abbott, those. Now, as far as, and then like there's one I used to tell patients about. I have it in a patient room. I could not think of it at the moment, but it gives them like a little reminder of like exercising and things like that. Oh my goodness, I cannot remember. It gives them like a reminder of like it's time to exercise, it's time to drink water, things like that. And then also a lot of the different ones, a lot of the apps do have like people that you can like talk to, which is really good as well, like certified diabetes care and education specialists and everything. So but a lot of if there's people who have diabetes that are viewing as well, like a lot of the medications. So just say like we talked about the GLP-1, like Ozempic or so. That company, which is Novo, they have different places where you can go and talk to someone, and they kind of can coach you through things, talk to you about your diet. One thing too that I always like to tell patients and tell people, providers, make sure that you, if there are any in your area, make sure the patients receive diabetes education. So if there's any like diabetes educators that offer diabetes classes, make sure that those patients receive that. And most of the time it's covered on insurance. So if the patient has insurance, they have diabetes, and that's recommended by the American Diabetes Association as well.
Wonderful. Any hurdles with people who have prediabetes with getting them any sort of care?
So it just really depends. So when I say depends, it depends on where their A1C level is and if they have obesity or they're overweight. So sometimes we may recommend a medication, and if the insurance will cover it, sometimes we'll go ahead and start treatment, especially if they have strong family history. If they're showing signs of insulin resistance, like acanthosis nigricans or so, like those dark spots like on the neck or on the folds or so. There are different things. If they're having these symptoms of like hyperglycemia, which could be like excessive thirst, urinating frequently, you might go ahead and put them on a medication. But the main thing with people who have prediabetes, if they're overweight, we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to guide them into having options for the weight loss, help them to eat, smaller portions, portion control, decreasing their calories in their diet. Because we know with weight loss, if you have prediabetes and you keep that weight off, if you weight loss is sustained, that we can prevent or delay type 2 from occurring. So that's the main thing with prediabetes. So that's why I said it depends. So if, your A1C may be 5.9, and your BMI or your body mass index is 40, we know decreasing weight will help prevent or delay type 2. So changing the way that you eat, making those lifestyle changes.
Wonderful. And then last question. So I know I've seen a lot of people, they've lost weight, or maybe they didn't even really need to lose weight, but they're using micro dosing of the diabetes medications for weight loss or management or maintenance. Are you seeing that? Because are you seeing people who want to come use those medications for weight loss, or you're seeing people who are kind of in the chronic disease management?
So we see patient with for obesity management too. We have patients who come to us, and so we will, refer to the dietitian as well. And their medications that have been FDA approved for weight loss, and so we, as long as their insurance will cover, that's the issue. Sometimes insurance doesn't want to cover those medications, but we have patients who are on those medications and they do well. Now, like the bigger companies like Medicare, Medicaid, they will pay for some of those medications, especially if the patient has had some type of cardiac event. So the insurance coverage is getting somewhat better because they're recognizing that if this person has obesity or so or overweight, that if we can go ahead and help with weight loss, we may decrease the risk of heart attack, stroke, kidney disease. So you're helping improve the overall healthcare system if you go ahead and have healthier patients. So hopefully that is going to improve even more with more of the indications, like I said, for like sleep apnea and liver problems. And I also read one of the GLP-1s may have an indication for like dementia too. That's just something I read. So hopefully that'll be something that come about pretty soon.
Yeah, but are you seeing anyone who really doesn't need to lose weight? They're just doing the micro dosing to kind of maintain?
I don't. I have seen that. I've seen that, of course, on social media and things like that, but I don't do that. But
Okay.
I've seen that on like social media, but I don't do it. I don't prescribe medications like that. I prescribe, on label or so.
Okay. And on label, we've talked to you guys about what that means before. That means the FDA approved something specifically for how it was studied in lab and in patients. And then sometimes we notice there's a benefit if we use it a different way. And that's what we mean by off label. So just letting people know. And do you offer, it sounds like you're insurance based. Do you have cash services?
We do, because some patients may not have insurance, or they may want to be what we call private pay or self-pay. So we do have patients who don't have insurance coverage, and so they just pay a certain portion.
And subscription model?
No, no, it's not.
Okay. And if you can, just let people know how they can connect with you, what days of the week you're open, and how they can set up that appointment.
Okay, so we are Diabetes Care and Wellness. We're 512 Graham, West Memphis, Arkansas. We service patients or provide service to patients in West Memphis, Marion, Arkansas, and Crittenden County, also Shelby County, which is Memphis, Tennessee. Also in Mississippi as well, like South Haven, Horn Lake, DeSoto area, because we're in this tri-state area here that we are able to see those patients as well. And we're the phone number is 870-551-4409. And our website is www.mydcwellness.com. We are also on Facebook. I think it's Diabetes Care and Wellness, I believe. And on Instagram, MyDCWellness is the Instagram handle.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on again and helping to clear up some misconceptions and provide some additional education. It's a special episode for me because I got my bachelor's in nursing at the University of Memphis. I did some of my clinical rotations in Mississippi or Mississippi. And it was just a really wonderful time in my life, one of the best places I ever lived. And not only was it specialty, my parents fell in love with it, and I still have some close friends that are still there. So we love going back there anytime I need a rest.
Okay.
And just really beautiful people, so much history, really great cost of living. The weather was wonderful too. We loved it, and delicious food. I was so afraid when I moved there because you're kind of in that what's it called? The belt.
Bible Belt.
It is Bible Belt, but also like the butter belt or something, or the bacon belt. I think it's
like bacon belt. I didn't know that.
Just because of the numbers of obesity in that area.
For sure.
I was so afraid I was going to gain a lot of weight when I moved there, but they had such a huge fitness population. I actually did I did some half marathons there with St. Jude, and I became a Zumba instructor there. I mean, there literally was so much fitness there. I will say one of those races at the end was like sponsored by Chick-fil-A, or there was Krispy Kreme. So that part, we could use a little. But hey, after you run all those miles, you deserve
something. Absolutely.
But it's just a little, interesting.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much. We'll put all your contact information in the description box. We wish you so well with your practice and your presence in the community. You're certainly serving a huge population, a huge need. And the fact that you look like you're enjoying what you're doing, you're bringing on a team, which shows that you're growing. We just wish you the best. And thank you so much for sharing your journey and not being afraid to do a different path. Because, we talk about social media quite a bit. And on social media, there's a lot of things that are glitter. And so everybody wants to take that path, right? But that's not the only path for both enjoyment, success, or to have a successful practice. And sometimes some of the things that are the most fulfilling are not on social media.
That's true.
Yeah. And shout out to all those people who supported you, who saw in you something you didn't even see in yourself, but you weren't afraid to embrace that. And in fact, you embraced it by continuing to build on your education, your training, and look at you. You're now in the community as an expert.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your kind
Yeah.
words as well.
Yeah. I've had diabetes affect my family in a huge way. So what you're doing is really, really meaningful. And I just can't thank you enough for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying it.
You're welcome back anytime, particularly when you add on new services or you want to talk about some other trends in healthcare. The door's always open. So
Okay, thank
consider
you.
yourself family. You joined Dr. Smith as our diabetes expert here at the Melanin Initiative. Remember, everyone, you can email us your questions and show ideas to tmi.melanin@gmail.com. There's still time to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share this content. When you engage with our information, it shows the algorithm that this information is important so that when people like you look for topics like this, we show up higher in the search results. At the time of this filming, we release new videos on Sundays at noon Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we drop the audio at 5 a.m. so that our night shift friends can be the first to get something and not the last, and maybe someday someone will play it during huddle and tell us about it. We thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.